I gotta say as well, just before we start the questions, the people who are donating $100 are getting nothing for their money because you're meant to put in a monthly request for the content. And I was like looking at the list going, fucking hell, I'm massively behind. I've done nothing here. And it's like, people just aren't making the request. And I don't know if it's because I'm not doing it and you're just too nice, or if it's because you keep forgetting. But you should. You should definitely hold me accountable and not let me get away with not doing it. Because I will not do it if you don't ask for it, obviously. So, Patreon questions. And this is just from, I'm in streamer mode. So it just says G. So whoever asked this one asks, if you had to replace a holiday with something of your choosing, which holiday would you toss out and what would you commemorate instead? This is like a super tough one for me because, like, for starters, holidays aren't universal. Like, I learned this living in America. Like, obviously, we don't do Thanksgiving over here, and it was super cool to have, like, an extra holiday so close to Christmas and after Halloween, which is, like, my favorite time of the year. Sort of living back here, I still kind of do Thanksgiving, you know, and, like, try and encourage my mates to come over and have a dinner and everything. But just talking from the perspective of UK holidays, don't we, do we get time off for Lent? We do, right? It's the holiday before Easter, right? Is that Lent? Is that what it is? The fifth Sunday in Lent, known as Passion Sunday. What's all? I don't know. No? I don't know. Well, Lent can go for me. Whatever it is. I don't even know. It just says, look, I'm looking at the internet. Lent is a period of 40 days during which Christians remember the events leading up to and including the death of Jesus Christ. It's like, yeah, I've been going on about that for a while now. So, but if you don't get a holiday for Lent, is it Good Friday? Is that it? Is that the day you get off? Because it's like, I broadly like the concept of Easter. You know, like, I broadly like the concept of Easter. You know, you hide eggs in the garden, don't you? You paint the eggs and you hide the eggs and people go and find the eggs. And you eat chocolate rabbits, don't you? And you eat chocolate and that's good. You know what I mean? And but it's like, good, you get a day off. You get a day off work for Easter. And it's like, what would I replace it with? What's super cool? What's, like, awesome? That just doesn't get any respect, and we should all have a holiday to sort of think about it. It's just like a super tough question. Because, like, what's awesome that got invented that we don't really pay any respect to? Not a bad suggestion. A holiday in honor of James Banks. A Banks bank holiday. Could be good. Yeah, I don't know. Like, on a serious note, we don't really celebrate anything from, like, a literary perspective, do we? Do we have, like, a Shakespeare Day in Britain? Like, do we have that? Do we have a day off where everyone just gets to chill? We all have a Shakespeare Day. Do we have that? Oh, there you go. Apparently we do. We do have a National Shakespeare Day, which makes sense. But you don't get time off work for it. But yeah, you know, like a Tolkien Day. I'd be all right with that. Or like, you see, yeah, World Book Day. That's only new. Pretty sure we didn't have World Book Day when I were a lad. And exactly, you don't get a holiday with it. There should be like a holiday specifically for like the best writer or something like that. See, Shakespeare Day would be sick if you got a day off work and all of the local theatres had to be open and you were allowed to just free of charge go watch a live production of a Shakespeare play. That'd be good, see. But yeah, Orwell. There you go. Like an Orwell Day. That'd be sick. Because like, there's more to Orwell than Animal Farm in 1984. People probably haven't read a lot of his stuff. Recently, this is like probably earlier in the year, probably in February. I read his collected letters and essays, and the guy was just such a fucking smart dude, you know what I mean? So, there you go. Fuck Good Friday, and let's all have an Orwell Day. You know, it'd be great, wouldn't it? We could like sit in the class and say like, you know, this is why we don't go down this slippery slope of suppressing free speech. Because you will eventually end up in an authoritarian nightmare. Not like now, but, you know, we could end up there, couldn't we, in the future? So, there you go. I fielded that tough question with Grace and Poise. This must be from £2. If England footballers past and present had gamer names, who would have the worst one and why would it be Harry Maguire? It's kind of interesting, actually, because gamer names are just sort of nicknames. The only real difference between a nickname and sort of a gamer name is we pick our gamer names, right? And everybody has to sort of call you by them. And this is why most people's gamer names are sort of fucking cringe as fuck, you know what I mean? I got rid of mine when I started being sort of semi-serious and wanting to be serious about writing. You know, because for a long period of time, I didn't really have to do a lot to get noticed in esports, because the average length of an article was about 500 words. Right, that was considered a feature-length article. Nobody broke news because it was considered bad to do that. You were ruining the industry. And like one of the things that everyone forgets, because I used to take, I would take conventional types of article from the real world and bring them to esports, and it blew everybody's mind. I wasn't really doing anything special. Like I would do a player profile, like a 2,500 word player profile, where I'd interview them and contextualize their life. And people go, "Oh my god, it's like the best thing I've ever read. Like, what's you doing?" Or TLDR. Maybe that was like the gulf of response. But that was just things that existed outside of it. And it was the same with when I started doing Good Land, Bad Land, you know? Good Land, Bad Land was like this huge popular series where what you would do is you would list one person who had a good thing and one person who had a bad thing, or one team that had a bad thing and one team that had a good thing, and something that was good and bad. Good Land, Bad Land. Everybody used to fucking wait for Good Land, Bad Land. It used to get spammed all the time. When's Good Land, Bad Land coming out? And it was literally just a paragraph, a paragraph, a paragraph, a paragraph. And you know, that type of thing existed in sports reporting and in the world of entertainment and stuff. Everybody loved that shit. People forget I started the first English language esports gossip column, right? Over at Source Junkie. People fucking hated it. People used to threaten me over it all the time, which, you know, fair enough, I guess. And you know, anyway, so I did all this stuff, and then, but what really used to put it over the top was I'd basically LARP as like sort of Hunter S. Thompson for like an iSeries weekend, or, you know, an Epic LAN, or whatever the UK event was. Now, when I say LARP, I was going to these events and taking copious amounts of drugs and staying awake for 4 days straight and writing 1,500 to 2,000 words a day about what that was like. So, you know, as LARPs go, it was pretty, you know, it was method acting, but that's what I would do. And the Gonzo Diaries is what they were called. That was sort of my gamer name, was Gonzo, because of it. And it's like super cringe, you know, because obviously Dr. Gonzo is Zeta Acosta's character in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and he's like, you know, a 300-pound, which I've never weighed ever in my life. I want that on record. But a 300-pound attorney who was sort of using his platform to kind of take drugs and travel around with Hunter S. Thompson on Rolling Stone's dime, you know. I got rid of the Gonzo nickname because it's kind of like cringe. But, you know, people from that era still call me Gons, but it's like, you know, you pick the nickname, and it doesn't really matter whether it's cringe or not. People will sort of adopt it. Nicknames are given. You earn a nickname, and nicknames can be something like, you know, your fucking surname is Davis, so it gets abbreviated to Daves, you're called Daves. Or you could be called Richard Lewis, and it gets abbreviated to Dickie Lou. But if you do something stupid, you will get fucking a nickname you can't get rid of. You know, that like is super embarrassing, isn't it? And you want to get rid of it. You don't want to be called that for the rest of your life. But, you know, you're just stuck with it. There's a lot of examples. I'm sure we've all got somebody that, like, you know, spewed at a party or something like that, man, fell asleep, and, you know, something embarrassing, and you can't get rid of it. We had a guy called Flagpole because he did a shit in the toilet, the communal toilet at university, and somehow he managed to land it straight up, and we couldn't get it to flush. So he was called Flagpole. Because that's the other thing. Sometimes you do something that's just crazy or excellent or random, and people will give you a nickname for that. I knew a guy whose nickname was Jackpot. This is true, because he could get £25 coins under his foreskin. So there you go. Think about that for a second. So yeah, nicknames. Rugby players. It's a different world. Anyway, to nicknames. So nicknames are given, and I think therefore by extension, it's not even like Harry Maguire would probably give himself like the gamer name like Governor. Governor, or, you know, Reliable with like a 1 in it. And obviously he's just mentally ill because he's trash at the game and he should retire immediately. And it's a disgrace that he's worked his way back into the Man United and England teams. But that being said, the fact is he's been given the nickname Slabhead and he'll never fucking get rid of that. He'll never not be Slabhead. So I don't know. I think, unfortunately, sometimes you get nicknames that are like self-fulfilling prophecies. Like we knew this Counter-Strike player called Beta. Right. And he would always fail at LAN. And, obviously he was doing it as if to say, I'm the build. I'm the early build. I'm so fucking sick at the game. I'm there before all of y'all. That's what he was trying to say with the name Beta. But unfortunately, what ended up happening was he failed at LAN after LAN after LAN, despite being always in the top UK teams. He got to a point where he started having these mental breakdowns where every time he lost the game, he would go into wireframe with NetGraph on, record a demo and be like, look, how did I miss? I didn't miss. Or if he did miss, I'm doing the right thing by holding my ground. This guy's wazdering and spraying and he's beat me. And he couldn't handle it. And so obviously the nickname Beta sort of went on to become essentially what he was. He was just some sort of mentally weak beta male, which was kind of always sad. Started out a nice guy, but the fucking, esports broke his brain like so many people before. So anyway, there you go. I don't even know if that answers the question. That was more just a series of random thoughts strung together by vague themes. Faramir, Richard, as you previously stated, you're into all types of music. Do you have a favourite or top 5 guitarist? I actually saw this question ahead of time, and I made some notes on this. It'll be on my Google Doc. Because this is hugely subjective, and I was thinking a lot about this because obviously, when you start talking about, who's good and who isn't, and then you've got genre, and then you've got the obvious answer, which is, Jimi Hendrix is the greatest guitarist of all time. And I don't think many people disagree with that as an assessment. So obviously you have to put him in. But I was a little bit more avant-garde with it because I don't like a lot of traditional guitarists. I never got it. So as a lot of you know, I used to be in a rock band and then ended up in a punk band and then ended up in a metal band and then in a punk band again. So, I sort of went through a lot of genres, but the first proper band I ever had was in a very traditional rock blues kind of band where the guitarist's dad, who was a fucking legend, he was the guy, by the way, if you know the story about fucking the pet mouse, with the cancer, that when he fucking killed it with the hammer, it's the same guy. But he was a blues guitarist as well, a good guitarist, and he was into all of that stuff. And so when we used to practice, there was a really strong influence from his dad coming into our guitarist, because we were very young, and I didn't want to do, I was into grunge. I didn't want to do fucking wanky traditional rock, but so we were always kind of off kilter creatively. And I used to talk to his dad about it all the time, saying, some of the stuff you listen to, Bruce, is fucking garbage, you know what I mean? It's so out of time, it's so out of place. And he used to be saying, no, you just don't get it, but you will when you're older and you appreciate it more, or maybe you're just not musical enough to appreciate it and you never will be. But Eric Clapton's one of the greatest guitarists, and I'm like, fuck Eric Clapton, man, don't want to listen to this, you come off listening to fucking Soundgarden, Bad Motorfinger or whatever, and the last thing you want to, or fucking Bleach by Nirvana, the last thing you want to fucking hear about is how great Eric Clapton is as a fucking guitarist. So as I got older, he was right. Bruce was right. He always was. I can appreciate Eric Clapton's musicality, although I would never listen to an Eric Clapton record. I think I'd rather have fucking dental torture. But it's when you hear about Van Halen or Brian May or Richie Blackmore, when you hear about these people being these amazing guitarists and you listen to it and you go, yeah, they're good guitarists, Yeah, Malmsteen, another one in the chat. I don't like that music, but I can appreciate how fucking good it is and how innovative they were. I think, so out of the big five that everyone always says, it's Jimi Hendrix number one. I mean, like, let's just fucking put that to bed. I even listen to Hendrix. I don't listen to any of the others. Oh, no, tell a lie, because Jimmy Page is the other one. So, Jimmy Page and Jimi Hendrix, they're in. But Hendrix is the greatest guitarist of all time, 100%. And I defy anyone sort of, I don't really think you can challenge that in sort of any, like, there's no, like, objective way to challenge it. There's a lot of people who get close and blah, blah, blah. Then you see, this is the problem. I'm just going to completely break away. And this is why I was like, holy shit. I started looking at some of the other lists out there, and I'm like, all of my choices, they're not even in, like, the top 20. Like, the people I really like sort of aren't even in the running, really. So I'm not going to put him in the top 5 necessarily, but as I said, I think because I'm into my metal, like, Dimebag is fucking insane for me. Like, I listen to his shit, and I think Dimebag Darrell is, like, so underappreciated. And obviously he's dead now, so there's no, like, fucking late stage in the game he's gonna come out. But I remember what dragged me back into... So I went like this. It was like, rock music's kind of cool and alternative, and I grew up at a time, coming out of the 80s where it was very conflicting, because you had it wasn't even a fork in the road. It was like 3 main branches that for, like, a sort of white kid in Britain at the tail end of the 80s and early 90s, there was, like, sort of 3 distinct branches. You had the huge kind of big hair metal kind of albums that were still prevalent and coming out, the traditional stuff. You think about, like, Use Your Illusion, the fucking double album of Guns N' Roses. It's, like, fucking insane. Everyone had a copy of it. You had to have a copy of that shit when you were growing up. And it's like, do I listen to Guns N' Roses now? No. But, like, they did do some fucking straight fire. Maybe not on Use Your Illusion so much, although, Mr. Brownstone, what a fucking tune. But anyway, so you had that, and then you had metal was having this thing. Slayer did a double live album called Decade of Aggression, which I had on cassette. And it was fucking, like, I don't even know if I would, like, listen to any other band, but, like, Slayer just did something that was, like, super fucking unique, and sort of Metallica as well, getting a bit heavier. You're coming off the back of Ride the Lightning. Master of Puppets, one of my favorite albums of all time, in any genre. And then the other choice was hip hop's taking off. We're moving out of the old school with KRS-One, BDP, and now we're getting into, Cypress Hill's taking off at this point, and fucking, we're a few years away from Black Sunday, which is, like, one of the biggest hip-hop albums of all time. And so, it's like, sorry, I missed out another one, of course, alternate rock, which is the grunge is happening. And so what I did somewhat greedily was I listened to all of it, but I started drifting away from the traditional hair metal. That went. And then as I got older, I was like, I'm probably out of metal. I don't like metal, actually. It's kind of got a bit boring. Metallica's Black album was, like, brilliant, but it was massively overplayed. Slayer's albums that were coming out after that weren't so great. I didn't really like, I'd kind of fallen a little bit out with some of the other ones, like Morbid Angel and people like this. And what dragged me back into it? Well, it was sort of 2 things, but Dimebag Darrell, Pantera brought me back into metal, because they weren't just this, like, super muscular, perfect for angry young men music that you get with, like, Vulgar Display of Power. And by the time The Great Southern Trendkill came out, you realized you were just listening to, like, a fucking musical genius fucking just shredding away. And his solos were, like, usually solos are, like, the successive decadent part of the song, but his solos used to really bring the music together. And it's like, you listen to that and it was just like, holy fucking shit, this guy is fucking insanely talented. Like, because you can hear the traditional country twang in his metal strings, the way the bends. He was just unreal. He's, like, one of my favorite guitarists of, like, all time, and he would be in my top 5. I think he transformed kind of how you think about metal guitar again. And as I said, I would have been all the way gone from metal. I would have been done with it if it wasn't for Pantera and Sepultura. Sepultura, when they recorded Roots in like 95 or whenever it was, the album where they just literally went into the jungle with the fucking tribes people and recorded a metal album, is like, fuck me. That stands up to this day as just being like, just one of the best metal albums of all time. But anyway, Dimebag for sure. Now let me I want to see, because I don't want to get got, but let me just see if I can play a little bit. Right. So another honorable mention, and this is just for me personally. Would probably maybe make my personal choice. I don't know. I did fuck with Frusciante for a long time. I even listened to like his solo albums and stuff, and all the like weird avant-garde stuff, and I love the, you know, sound he brought to the Chili Peppers and everything else. I think Frusciante's like super talented, like really, really good, and if anything, like kind of underappreciated, because, you know, when people are like talking about like fucking Knopfler and you know, other people like this, it's like, I don't know, man, like I don't, it just doesn't feel as good. But again, it's like, it's super personal. I also, as you probably tell from when we come in and I'm like listening to stuff, I like lots of like bluesy and you know, all of that kind of stuff, like the fusion of like rock and blues, like, and how it segues into like, you'll hear all these like fucking insane like licks, and they get used in like hip hop songs. They get sampled, and everyone's like, oh my god, that sample's so cool. And it's like, you should listen to the fucking original, dude. Like, there's a fucking, like, you know, it's a killer. That always kind of like is a trip when you see that. But let me bring this up. Hang on. So, very underappreciated guitarist, and I think I have to show you a picture of him for you to understand how good he is. This is Albert King, right? And Albert King is fucking wild. When you go and look into his stuff, basically he plays a flying V guitar, but as guitar aficionados will know immediately, he plays it upside down. That's just how he taught himself to play. And so his sound is fucking crazy. And actually, Albert King, he once famously said, because Jimi Hendrix, so I'm probably misremembering this, but Jimi Hendrix loved Albert King, and they played a gig where Albert King was playing. They got to play together, and Albert King said in an interview, you can Google this, I'll be paraphrasing, but basically he said, I could play anything Jimmy could play, but Jimmy couldn't play stuff I could play just because of how I do it, right? And that was the kind of swagger he carried himself like. And obviously Jimmy loved the motherfucker and never corrected it. But like, his stuff's insane, and you will have heard it. You will have heard it. You just won't know that you've heard it. Fucking love him. Like, I mean, obviously, you know, BB King, you know, Howlin' Wolf. Like, these are like legends. The irony was when I was a kid and I had access to Bruce's like unbelievable brain and knowledge about blues and the history of the guitar music, and and literally his record collection, which was insane. I didn't give a shit. And then obviously as I got older, I was like started listening to this stuff because I was super interested in like sampling and DJing and stuff. And all of these licks kept coming up, you know, in like breakbeat and hip hop. And so I went back to the source and started listening to a lot of this stuff. And I was like, fucking hell, man. This is straight fire. This is like fucking amazing. So as much as I love BB King and all the other guys, you know, for me, Albert King is the dude. When I think about like being in a bar at fucking 4 a.m., sipping that last shot of whiskey out the glass as they call time, and fucking you're miserable and you've got nowhere to go, I think of him and I think of that music and I think of how he was sort of tailor-made for that life. So anyway, because of his unique sound and style, he would maybe make my top 5. But I'm open to get some of the other classics in there. I sort of get it. You know, I do like Zeppelin, so as I said, I would put Page in. Who else? Ooh, it's very tough, man. You know, I saw Carlos Santana live. And everybody raves about Santana. And obviously it was older Carlos Santana. It was when he was doing that fucking tour, when he had that resurgence, because that one song, Smooth, blew up, or whatever the fuck it was called. I saw him live. He put on a great show. He was a great pro. I also, and it's like deeply unpopular to sort of say, I think. I don't think it makes you cool to say it. But yeah, I saw someone type it in the chat. I do think Prince is an underappreciated musical genius, which is sort of like a very boomer thing to say, I guess. But I thought Prince was fucking sick. I always thought he was interesting, and I didn't appreciate it at the time, but the way the entertainment industry maligned him for taking a stand for artists, as he did when he started calling himself the artist formerly known as Prince, to sort of get around that Sony bullshit. He actually was like a super smart cat as well, and they tried to make him look like he was insane and having a breakdown. You know, they were trying to sort of say it was like some Kanye shit, but it wasn't. So, yeah, I mean, for me, I would never pick him in my top 5, but he sort of deserves some appreciation. One thing I'll just say is it wouldn't be anyone from the Beatles and it wouldn't be anyone from the Stones, and you know, I'm not really into any of that shit really, in terms of I think they write good songs. I don't think they're great guitarists. Maybe Buddy Guy as well, but you know, that pick 5 out of there. You know, I won't spend much longer on it, because otherwise we'll end up basically doing 100 names. Anyway, next question: what are your best and worst A24 movies, and is your best movie different from your favorite? Right. Well, I also prepped for this. So for those that don't know, A24 is basically like a film distribution company at a time when kind of like artistry is becoming more and more bereft from cinema. And, you know, we see these disgusting sort of corporate focus group driven sequel year after year stuff. And they do produce as well. Yeah, Lossie, you are correct. You know, we like the Marvel entities, you know, the Disney stuff, and it's just trash. The fucked up bungled DCU, whatever the fuck that was. They were going to reboot that. All of their Universal Pictures monsters is the fucking Dark Universe, you know, and that's been stymied now. Just really, you know, there's just, I know, I don't look forward to movies anymore in the same way I used to. When I do look forward to a movie, it's generally something that's kind of like really interesting. And I'm not going to the cinema to see it. It might not even get a cinematic release. I'm going to watch it at home on the big telly, and I'm going to enjoy it. And I haven't seen Killer of the Flower Moon. People are asking. I haven't seen it yet, but I am gonna see it. I've heard good things so far. I talked to someone who has seen it at this party the other night, and they said Robert De Niro knocks it out the park, and it's the best thing he's done in years. So we'll see. He's due a good one, because he's done a lot of garbage. So anyway, so ones that I do like. Recently, obviously they're known for their horror films. I'm a big horror fan. We're coming out of Halloween. I love Hereditary, and I might even prefer Midsummer. I don't really know. Both of those movies, for me, the Ari Aster movies, are fucking great. I really can't recommend them enough, but the problem is they're not for everybody, because as the people who did the watch along on Discord know, I like my horror to kind of be, not something scary's happening, now we've killed the monster and we all go home. I'm not really about that. I think that's like, there's a time, slasher movies are fine, and when you're growing up, there were some mad guilty pleasures. You watched all the Freddy movies, watched all the Halloween movies, watched all the Jason movies. But, are they great examples of elevating the form of horror movies? No, they're not. They're just like, it's like being in a ghost train. That's all they are. Hereditary's great because it works on both a literal level and it works subtextually about kind of mental illness and how grief can drive us to destructive behaviors, and in the kind of pain of losing family, you end up pushing family members away. And it's like a super interesting film. Midsommar is about what is it to have a support group? What is it to sort of be surrounded by people who are non-empathetic to your problems, to then be essentially surrounded by people that are overly empathetic as you sort of go from a crisis and when you go from one extreme to another, And obviously, again, quite literally, it's about a death cult. Both of those films are fantastic. Midsommar blew me away. It really did, and I can't recommend it enough. But if you're the type of person that only wants a literal experience, you're probably not going to enjoy Ari Aster's movies. A lot of people criticize him for his endings. I don't feel that way. I think out of Hereditary and Midsommar, I think Midsommar is definitely the stronger ending. Hereditary is the more dripped in dread film. I watched another one the other day. I finally got around to watching Barbarian, which is another good one. It's not A24, but Barbarian is a great little film that comments, much like the A24 film Men, about kind of it's the horror of the things that men do when they think they can get away from it. And Barbarian is very clever in how it does it. I mean, I don't want to... It's one of those movies you have to go in blind, I think, to really appreciate it. But it's very clever in what it's saying about men and women and men being inherently dangerous to be around. If you're a woman, there's certain red flags that you really have to pick up on and stuff. And obviously the kind of avenging monster in that is female and is feminine. So that's like, but anyway, I enjoy Barbarian quite a lot. So my favorite A24 film, I think their most commercially successful is Everything Everywhere All at Once, right? I think I read that. And I really like that movie. And again, it's sort of, I thought it was funny that people didn't really get what the movie was. Whenever I was talking to people, they were kind of telling me like, oh, and it's just like gender bending reality, and like everybody's nothing, and sometimes you're a man, sometimes you're a woman, and it's all these like sexual expressive stuff, and you go through different universes, you can be anyone you want, you're operating in alternate timelines and all this stuff. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, because all I got was it was about like a family kind of just falling apart, and actually all of the window dressing about the existential stuff and the changing of identities and the only for me it was essentially about a daughter being scared of being rejected by her parents because of her sexuality, and that's all it really is about. And all the other stuff is kind of just about the conflict that it generates and her desire to be dead rather than estranged, which is great. I thought it was really touching. It outstayed its welcome by about 30 minutes. But other than that, I think it's a fantastic film. It's 4 out of 5 stars. But not my favorite A24 film. I think objectively, the best and my favorite might be the same, because I think The Lighthouse is probably one of the best films I've seen in, however many years it's been, last 10, 20 years. I think The Lighthouse is like unprecedented. I think Willem Dafoe just out of this world. But it also really shows you that Robert Pattinson has range, can act, and the way it's shot, the fact it's like loosely based on a true story about two Welsh lighthouse keepers. It's just great. It's just a wonderful, wonderful film. It's film as an experience, which again, most films aren't interested in providing you with an experience. They're interested in providing you with an advertisement for the next movie and maybe some supplemental merchandise. The Lighthouse, you're watching something that will fucking really stay with you. The other ones, Uncut Gems is the other big critically acclaimed one. I love that movie, but it feels like a fucking panic attack. It's just like literally having a panic attack while you're watching it. Kind of reminded me of Good Time in that sense, which Good Time is fucking amazing. And yeah, Good Time absolutely clears Uncut Gems. I loved Good Time. I recommend that to all of my friends. I say, like, stop what you're doing, watch this movie, you won't believe it. But I liked Uncut Gems, but I thought it was very overrated for what it was. I think it's a good movie. Underappreciated, The Green Knight. I was going to do, because I'm always coming up with ideas for content, and then there's just never enough time to do them. I was going to do like a series of like, watch this movie if, and I think if you are suffering from social anxiety of any kind and you're very apprehensive about what to do with your life, I think watch The Green Knight. It's a very interesting adaptation. Obviously, I talk about this with Monte Cristo because he's very into medieval literature and all of that, like Grail lore and all of that. He's loved all the Arthurian stuff. The Green Knight is ultimately about a person who, to gain approval in his immediate circle of like being, you know, because he's seen as a bit of a wastrel, a green knight, this sort of ethereal being, turns up and says, who will fucking duel me, and, you know, blah blah blah. And he says, like, you know, if you any blow you strike upon me, like a year and a day from now, I have to strike it against you. So he jumps in to fucking look like the big Billy, you know, big Billy Big Bollocks, chops off this Green Knight's head. And the Green Knight picks up his head and goes, right, see you in a year and a day, you cunt. And off he goes. And so everyone's like, wow, you're brave as fuck, mate. And he's like, yeah. And then it gets to, right, well, you better get riding off to go and see the dude. And he gets to chop your head off. And so as he's doing that, he goes through this adventure and he's seeing, you know, different things in the world that sort of reflect, you know, his like anxieties and all of that stuff. And then eventually, say I'm kind of ruining it if I say what I want to say, so I'll try not to. But ultimately he comes to a realization, because of all the things he experiences en route, that the worst thing to do than live a life of meaning is to have led a meaningless life, a life without direction, a life without conviction, a life without principle. And so in that moment, he steals himself. And it's got a wicked ambiguous ending. Because it's like, does the Green Knight kill him? Or has the Green Knight freed him from the negative, you know, pre-thinking he does that limits his life? And the last line is simply, right, now then, off with your head. And then it hard cuts to black. And so does he cut off his head? Literally? Or is it a figure, you know, is it, you know, a metaphor saying, right, we freed you of this limited thinking. That was the purpose of it. So I recommend people watch it. And yeah, Finchy from The Office is in it. So check it out, because if you've got social anxiety, I think it gives kind of a nice little resolute message about, like, just be bold and sort of take risks. It's okay. There's worse things that can happen to you. What's the worst one? Right, I did get into this. Let me see, because obviously there's some like objectively poor ones that no one will have heard of. What I have to do here is pick the one that is bad and people have heard of it. And the one that I came up with for this is, so I went back and forth, because what I'm supposed to say is Tusk, the Kevin Smith movie. That's meant to be the objective answer, probably. But I'm not going to say that, because I love Tusk. I don't know why I love that film, but I love that film. I have watched that film And I've never met anybody else who likes it. Like, never. But I do like it. And I don't know why I like it. And I think the worst thing about it is Johnny Depp. I don't even think, fucking whatever their actor's name is bad, or the premise is beyond stupid. I don't know. I've got weird tastes. I mean, I was the guy in my friend circle that was trying to convince everyone that, a Serbian film was misunderstood genius. Or The Human Centipede is actually a biting satire. Fuck off, Richard. You know what I mean? Like, so no, those aren't examples. Those are things I really think. A Serbian film is actually one of the most misunderstood movies ever of all time. It's a travesty that it is just branded a movie for shock value on the basis of one scene. It is a very intelligent movie that has something to say, and I think people should. Watch it and knowing what it's really about. So anyway, I meant to say Tusk. I'm not saying Tusk. I'm not doing it. I will not throw Tusk under the bus. So I will say it is the James Franco, Amber Heard, the Adderall Diaries. It's absolute as bad as it sounds. It was a vanity project. Because Franco was an interesting cat, like all before he got accused of all the shit he did. And, I was like interested, he did an adaptation of Howl, the Allen Ginsberg famous poem, and he did it from the viewpoint of Ginsberg. I'm always interested in that kind of stuff. But Franco he keeps trying to do these like high literary, I'm so interesting, I'm a real actor kind of guy, and it's like, bro, like, you haven't done a good movie in a long, long time. I don't even include the fucking, the Disaster Artist or whatever. I don't think that movie was that good. In fact, I think you may as well just watch The Room and come to your own conclusions. Outside of The Deuce, I don't think James Franco's done anything good for a long, long time, and he keeps trying to position himself as some sort of high-minded literary guy, which he might be in his life, but it doesn't come across in his work. So it's the Adderall Diaries is the worst one, not Tusk, but you can put Tusk second if you want. Right, that's A24 done. Next up, this is from I Can't Take This Shit No More. Content request. Oh, so this is just a request. We need you to do a wacky rich food review of a Tesco chicken korma. All right? Bank it. Done. Jester asks, you're on death row in a Saudi prison. Fucking hell. Right, hang on. You're on death row in a Saudi prison for being a terrorist. And definitely not because you're a journalist critical of the regime. However, since our great Saudi, he's crossed out dictators and then put leaders, are so generous, they have ordained you to enjoy a last meal. What is that last meal? Could have just said, if you were on death row, what would you have for a last meal? It's very hard to sort of like, I do love tomahawk steaks. The sad thing about being in the UK, it's kind of true now. I realise, like, a lot of people have criticised British food for a long time. And, you see it all, celebrities. Oh, British food's shit. And all the influencers. British food shit. You sort of don't realise, because when you're a Brit, it's like you grow up with stodge, like stews and pastries and fish and chips. And, and they're all traditional food that comes from a time when we didn't get spices. Spices would have been in the hands of the super wealthy. We would have had herbs with an H, not herbs, Americans. And we would have had that. And so the flavors were always kind of a bit subtle, but also as well, we would have to have big, substantial meals that would serve a purpose of not just being filling and nutritious, but very often would have to be a substitute for proteins because, again, meat was expensive. And so when you look at like British food, that's why everything's got batter on it. That's why pastries exist. I mean, pastries as well form a preserving your food. But you encase something in pastry, it lasts a bit longer. The air doesn't get to it. That's what people used to do. You think about a Yorkshire pudding, big eggy batter thing that you cook and you have it as a supplement, very often traditionally as a replacement for meat with your vegetables and everything else. And so, and there's gravies and there's soups and there's stews. But yeah, it's not like fantastical flavors. Like, British cuisine, as I've said many times, doesn't really get interesting until we have this sort of influx of, Indian food. Indian food really saved British cuisine. So my last meal would unquestionably be tomahawk ribeye, medium rare, on the bone, with some fucking mashed potatoes, fried onions. Yeah, that's it. That's all I need. That'll fucking do. And I'm talking a big one. Can't skimp on it. Because steaks in Britain are shit. You go out, you would, sir, have the 16 ounce. Like, fucking hell, man. I used to live in America. I want the 64. Is that possible? Oh, no, sir. No, we don't do them that big. Fuck you, then. So, whatever. Right, now that Fury versus Usyk is happening, hopefully for real this time, do you think this fight stands any chance of being good? Can you even get excited about it, especially after that shit show in Riyadh? I talked about this before. I mean, first of all, they pushed it back now, I think. I did the thing. I may have stumbled across on the internet. It was really weird. There I was, thinking I'd really like to watch the Ngannou Tyson Fury fight out of morbid curiosity. But I don't want to set the precedent of paying $80 for one of the worst boxing cards I've ever seen in my life. So I was just like, we'll see what happens. And there I was, just typing into the internet innocently. And next thing I knew, a window opened and it was just there. It was just playing. I was like, wow, okay. So I ended up watching it. And anybody who says Ngannou won is a moron that doesn't understand boxing. He didn't. He did knock down Tyson Fury, and Tyson Fury embarrassed himself by clearly showing up out of shape. And I guess, something happened, because here's what this was meant to be. Tyson Fury's going to be doing a hard camp for the Usyk fight. He doesn't want to do another hard camp because he blows up between fights. He's always had an unconventional body shape, right? He doesn't want to have to do a hard camp just to beat Ngannou. It was meant to be an exhibition match where you get paid, I get paid. That was what it was meant to be. And just you come in and we just do this for a little bit. And everybody goes, yeah, Ngannou looked really good, actually. Wow, they should have a rematch, and let's milk this cash cow some more. That was meant to be the fucking plan. And instead, what we got was Ngannou, for some reason, had a bee in his bonnet. And when he did knock Tyson Fury down, he started dancing in front of him. And then Tyson Fury just sort of outboxed him by landing way more strikes. I mean, the fact it's a split decision was kind of really worrying to me, because anybody who couldn't see that Tyson Fury might have not landed the most damaging strikes. He certainly didn't knock Ngannou down, and it's super embarrassing that Tyson Fury got knocked down by Ngannou. But he comprehensively outboxed him. And, look, all I'm going to say is this. When I was watching the punditry afterwards, the analysis desk, they've got Lennox Lewis, one of the best boxers of all time. Looking very good these days, actually. He's aged really gracefully. Not a lot of boxers do. He's looking great. And super happy for him. He's a nice guy. And he said, listen, I know everyone's a little bit surprised that Tyson Fury did get knocked down, but, he outboxed him and he won and blah, blah, blah. Next to Lennox Lewis, one of the best boxers of all time, Dan Hardy. Fuck off. And Dan Hardy goes, I'm going to disagree with you there, Lennox. It doesn't, dude, that's like me fucking disagreeing with Stephen Hawking about physics. Just shut the fuck up, man. What you don't know, old fucking medalist, fucking former heavyweight boxing champ of the world is telling you. You just shut the fuck up. Your opinion is meaningless. So, anyway, the fight was a shit show. It was pretty embarrassing. It was embarrassingly bad. And I think it's a wake-up call for Fury. I think that's probably why. They were like, oh, my cut's not going to heal or whatever. I was sort of only vaguely caught it. I wasn't really paying attention. But I think they were saying, oh, his cut's not going to heal, so we don't know if we can do it. We don't know if we can do it in time, so we're going to have to push it back a little bit. And it's because Tyson Fury knows he needs a much harder camp. Now, that said, I think he'll still beat Usyk. I think this is the last real money fight in the whole Fury canon. I've got no doubt he'll keep going to Riyadh and doing these freak fights. They are probably going to do a rematch with Ngannou after Usyk. But in terms of real boxing, this is the last fight that's out there. I don't think it'll be very good. But, you know, I sort of get it. It makes sense. You unify everything and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, I'm not excited for it. I haven't been excited for any of those fights, even with the rise of Fury. Really respect him as a fighter, obviously, and I think he's beaten the best people in his day, and definitely deserves to be, like, you know, in a conversation about, you know, post 2000, who were the best boxers, but best of all time. I mean, that's fucking insane. I hear people saying, you know, this is what I mean. This is when you know people never watched boxers, like they've never seen boxing. You know, they go like, oh, Tyson Fury. He's up there for discussion for one of the greatest heavyweight boxers of all time. Man, he wouldn't have hung in the 80s. He just wouldn't have hung in the 80s. He wouldn't have hung in the 80s. Might not even have hung in the 90s, frankly, but certainly not in the 80s, when everyone was a fucking stone cold killer and everybody could wear the belt. Like, nah, bro. Fury wouldn't have had a look in back then. So, yeah, I'll watch, because I'm a dickhead. Tyler asks, what's dirtier, the esports money or Paris? I went to Paris recently, as you know, and had a great time. I went across Europe, starting in Paris, and really vibed with it. I had a great time in Paris, I've got to say. I was very surprised because I went to businesses and the staff weren't rude. And that's the first time that's ever happened to me in France. And it wasn't just like I found one place where the staff weren't rude. I went loads of places. I went to a bar called The Dirty Dick. This is true, you can look it up. There's a bar in Paris called The Dirty Dick. And they make the worst cocktails I've ever had in my life. But the ambiance is pretty good. And the toilets are giant mouths and you can piss in them. So, yeah, I had a great time in Paris. And you know what? Yeah, it was dirty in some areas. But you know what? Compared to the last time I went, which might have been like 8 years before, I went then and I saw rats in the streets. Literally. And I said, what up, Jabby and Stout? No, I saw rats in the streets, you know, and you know, I didn't see that this time. It was a lot cleaner and better attitude. In fact, the only thing that I saw that really kind of got to me was right on the very last day when I was coming back home. I'd been to Vienna, met an esports fan in Vienna, went to Budapest, got recognised in Budapest by someone who was literally wearing a PGL Stockholm CSGO Major t-shirt. And there I was with a fucking hangover and sunglasses on, like, sat at a fucking Starbucks, like, talking to my mate. And fucking this guy walked over with fucking an actual PGL Stockholm t-shirt on, so that was kind of surreal. And then anyway, we came back to Paris. We were on the last day. I saw a man who was so emaciated and malnourished. He was really old. He must have been late 60s, maybe older. Huge bushy white beard. He had no top on, and you could see every rib. He looked like Christian Bale in The Machinist, like he was fucking so thin, and he had like these leggings on and no shoes, and his feet were jet black with soot. And he was just in the train station, and he was like howling, like this like fucking sound of like pain. He was just on his knees, like howling. Like prostrate, like, you know, fucking like he was praying. And I was like, fucking hell. And everybody was just like ignoring this shit, you know? And I just ain't the one, I'm just not like that. I'm like, this guy needs fucking help. So I went to get him some food from a store, queued up, got like a little meal, got some water. I was going to sit down and, you know, talk to him. And as I came back, the police had just fucking braced him. Like, I'm talking about the Parisian police in the train station with the anti-terrorist gear and the fucking MP5s. And they just fucking picked him up, one on each arm, howling just off. I'm like, you know, what? How does his story fucking end? You know what I mean? It was really bad. It stayed with me for a while. That one did. That was really sad. And you know, the homeless situation in Paris has been like pretty. You know, it's getting worse because we got a lot of I don't know if you've heard about current political events, but that's Bidenomics. You know, we got a lot of displaced people right now, and yeah, it's putting a strain on a lot of people's lives. I mean, it's getting to the stage now where there's even in the big cities that, I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but if you know anything about homelessness and kind of how it works, you know what I'm saying is true. There's a tier system in homelessness now. You've got these new influx of people that don't know the systems, don't know where to go, don't know where's safe, and then you've got the kind of more old school savvy homeless people that can get into a hostel, 2 nights a week and stuff like that. But yeah, that was the only really tough part. That was like really bad to see. But yeah, honestly, the Saudi money's dirtier, I would say. Paris has made great strides. I hate to say it because I fucking hate Macron. But when I was there, they just had the last bunch of riots, and I was expecting it to be, people were, the week before I went, you were advised not to go to Paris. It was like, maybe don't go. And I was like, I'm going. Like, I don't give a fuck. I'll be fine. When we got out there, we just had a lovely time. It was just in a fucking bistro. It was like every morning, yeah, more fresh bread. Yeah, croissant. Don't mind if I do. You just call me sir. What's happening in France? So it was like what was happening on the news compared to what I saw was like crazy. And I went to Pagol. I went to all the fucking crazy areas. Like, nah, there's no problems. So right, next up, Mr. PayPal asks, with Eden Hazard's retirement from football, I think it's time to reflect upon the overall health of football as a sport. What do you think are the greatest dangers to the beautiful game? Congested fixture lists leading to more injuries and potential early retirements, state-sponsored teams destroying the basics of football economics, and also, can you think of any other footballers with ass cheeks as beautiful as Hazard's? Well, I'll skip that last question if it's all the same with you. But, unfortunately, the next big problem facing football, the existential crisis that's around the corner, is now the repurposing of the idea of the Super League. I'm a big believer that what's going on with Saudi and the Saudi domestic league, and I don't know if you've read the reports, Saudi are trying to leverage the overall improvement of their domestic league, plus the fact they've just been given the World Cup bid for 2034 or whatever it is, because of course they're now using that to try and say to UEFA, hey, what if we had 2 teams in the Champions League? And I don't know if you heard, there was an incident because they have kind of like a Middle Eastern equivalent of the Champions League. There was an incident where a Saudi Arabian team went to play an Iranian team. So I should say Iranian. I'm trying to do that a bit more, kind of like with Kyiv. I need to update my pronunciations. I've been alive that long, my pronunciations are out of date. But, so what happened was, in the Asian Champion League, I bookmarked this because that would be interesting to talk about if it ever came up. But Al Ittihad, who of course they're state-owned, they're the one with I think they've got the PIF money. They were meant to play Iran's team, Sepahan, and they refused to play because there was a statue of a general which was offensive to Saudis for some political reason, and it's there at the entrance to the pitch. And so Al Ittihad players were instructed, don't go onto the pitch till they remove that statue, right? And the Iranian club said, we're not going to take down a fucking statue just so you can come onto the field. So they didn't play the game and they rescheduled, and there was like 60,000 fans, So, unfortunately, as I've told you, Saudi gets what it wants. And so the problem you've got is it's all fun and games when, you've got Saudi state members shaking your hand and saying we love you and please just come and play our games and take our money. But it's always going to come at the cost of them being the power players, and they'll get what they want. And so what's going to end up happening is you are going to see Saudi Arabian teams in the Champions League. I think that's going to happen. I don't know when, but that's going to be a precursor to we are going to see the Super League that all the European clubs tried to do, the Juventuses and the Barcelonas. But the irony is half of it will probably be Saudi, Qataris, Emiratis, and they'll cut out the failing European clubs. Because, look, there's a real chance, not a real chance, a slight chance, but it's a chance. Barcelona are fucked. Juventus are fucked. Like, how many more times, by the way, can you just be involved in a corruption scandal as one of these clubs? How many more times are you going to get caught bribing referees? Like, how many more times does it have to happen? Not bribing referees and financial irregularities. It's just like, they do one season. Okay, what we'll do is this season, we'll break all financial fair play rules and lie about our money and cook the books. We'll do that this year. The next year, we'll bribe the refs. And they just alternate. And then it's like, well, you got your 15 points deduction. The reality is, the more and more that those Saudi teams become super teams in and of their own right, suddenly Barcelona isn't too big to fail. Suddenly Juventus isn't too big to fail. Suddenly those teams are, superfluous to requirements. Because what you might not know is DAZN, they've got a broadcasting deal set up with the Saudi Arabian teams for the Saudi Arabian League. I can watch Saudi Arabian football on DAZN now. And more people are going to be interested in that and interested in paying for it. The better and better the teams get and the more players go over there. And suddenly there's a path to viability now about those being in a Super League that everyone would have to pay for, because people get used to seeing their favourite players playing in a Saudi team. Suddenly people love the fact that, like, Al Ittihad are the big, got these incredible squads, and that's what's going to go down. So that to me is the problem, that it's kind of funny. There's a lot of parallels with esports in a way. You've got these big brands that have lived beyond their means in an unsustainable way for decades, that have been corrupt, and everybody's been party to the corruption because we don't want Barcelona to fail. Barcelona's got the UNICEF sponsor. Suspiciously, refereeing decisions just go their way all the time. We can't have Juventus fail. The old lady or two are in, but it's like, everyone goes along with it, and then when you just can't go along with it anymore, everybody walks away and goes, oh my God, it's disgusting, isn't it? It's like, no, you've all been party to it. And unfortunately, there's no one left to lie to. There is no more, if you're a football team, there is no more money to scam. It's downsize time. It's get bought by a sugar daddy or downsize time. That's it. And so you're going to see a big fall in some of the old traditional big spenders. And instead, the future is Brighton. The future is Brentford. That's what being a functional, viable Premier League team looks like. It doesn't look like Todd Burley coming in spending a fucking £1 billion. So that's what you need to do. You need to be able to scout a player. You need to min-max. It's as simple as that. So yeah, I think unfortunately the problem is we're going to have a very sort of heavy Saudi influence come into even European football via the back door of Champions League places, and then eventually the Super League. And the people asking about where Prem Review is, I'm in the process of moving house and buying a house. My life's a nightmare. Something's got to give. And so the Prem Review stuff is it's not been shelved. It's just I'm like weighing up how many hours I have in a day. And if it's an hour I can fill with something else or a Prem Review, I'm taking the something else. So that's just where we're at. And by the way, Eden Hazard, great player in his day. I mean, really, really at Chelsea, we saw the best of him. Sad he got played by injuries. Fantastic play. Alfredo, you've mentioned the loss of Scoots as a personal friend as a result of each of your paths in esports. Have there been any other friends in the industry you wish I could reconnect with but haven't been able to? For one reason or another, either by mending old burned bridges or a good old catch-up from the decades you've been around. I generally haven't burnt a lot of bridges in esports, really. Like, either the relationship we had was kind of, not adversarial, but we were always going to be on the opposite side of a fence, one way or the other, because of what I do. I was thinking about it because Steel got unbanned recently, and again, I don't want to give too much away about what I do kind of in my, spare time and who I talk to and stuff like this. But obviously with everything that's been going on in Israel, on October 7th, I've got Israeli friends. And, obviously Josh has family that are Israeli. He's of his Israeli descent. And so I was like, I'm going to reach out to him, man, because it's like a tough time for him probably. So I did hit him up, and we hadn't talked in a while, and that was when we got talking, and that was when he told me the news. He said, obviously everything kind of sucks right now, but the good news is I reached out to Valve, and they said, They said that they would unban me like on the 10-year anniversary of the bans. And I went, well, what? So I said, are you tripping? And he's like, nah, for real. So I knew about it before he even tweeted. And I was like, should I? But I was like, you know what? Even though this would be great for the Substack and Josh probably would let me do it, I didn't want to say anything publicly because I don't want to jeopardize the guys getting unbanned. Even though it functionally means nothing, symbolically it means a lot because they have been disproportionately punished for sins that many others have got away with. So, I really wanted it to be like, it's important for me that does happen. Like, it's not a weight off my mind because their careers were still sort of functionally destroyed, but it opens up some doors that could never be opened before. Like maybe Josh can now be a coach at a Valve event, for example. I'm not saying he wouldn't play, but Josh can now be a Counter-Strike coach and go to Valve events. Maybe that's something I want to pursue. I think he'd be a fantastic coach. I think he'd be a fantastic analyst. I think he'd be a fantastic member of the broadcast talent pool. And, and I reached out to the other guys as well and said, I'm hearing this. Because I don't know if they all still talk. I mean, there was a lot of bad blood in the aftermath. And I was always closest with Josh. I was always really tight with Josh. So I reached out to the others and just said, look, hearing this, if you haven't talked to Valve, maybe you should. It'd be great if you all got them banned. And, so I checked in with all of them, and just, it's kind of weird because I used to be mates with Dazed and obviously AZK as well. And it's like this one thing that happened sort of like, I know, it's probably loomed way too large over our lives for a long time. I'd like it to sort of be put to bed, honestly. So it was nice to check in with Josh. I always do regret that. I regret that it came at the cost of our friendship because Josh is a great guy, like one of the nicest human beings I ever met. We spent a lot of time with each other, like when he was staying at mine. He met my fucking girlfriend. We've been out for dinner with each other. It's like, it sucks that esports kind of got in the way of that. Yeah, the other one is obviously Destiny. That's like, I don't know. He's gone on to be like a sort of crazy Kuma kind of guy now, from what I can tell. Good for him, sow your wild oats. But he, obviously for me, I think I look at all the coverage that's gone on with like Ukraine and Israel, Palestine, and I just think like it's an abomination he's not on Twitch. I think it's an absolute fucking abomination. I look at some of the misinformation and nonsense that gets spread and said. I think about how like some of these top political streamers on this platform have actually encouraged extremism and advocated for violence, and Twitch won't ban them. And then Destiny said a sort of throwaway flippant sentence and got banned. And, I think that's bullshit. I think it's absolute bullshit. And he should be on this platform if he wants to be on this platform. I did see they put out a tweet saying, or there was a story in Deserto that was tweeted saying Twitch have said if you're banned, you can reapply. But, it's kind of crazy because I probably should have reached out during the Trihex stuff. Because when the Destiny and Trihex podcast ended, I thought that was a loss. And I like Trihex too. I've met him in person. I think he thought I was going to be something I'm not, but I've always fucked with that guy. I think he's like really smart and sensible and, funny dude. When that happened and he said, well, we're just not doing a podcast no more, that was probably that was like a way in. And I could have said like, we could do it, and we could like, basically make it unfiltered, but just give it a different name. And we didn't, and I'll be honest as well, like mentally, I wasn't strong enough. I wasn't ready to be in his world. Like Steven is one of the most like mentally tough guys. Like, I don't know if he's got like an actual thing, like if he's got a condition that just like, because he always jokes about being a psychopath and like lacking empathy. But one of the, I couldn't handle the shit people do to him or say about him. It would wear me down. And so I wasn't in a good place for all that time for, reasons you all know. And so I was like, I can't do that. It was like, I talked to Train like when we fucking squashed all of that stuff. And he was like, if I start the podcast again when you come back on, and I'm like, it could be cool and it'd be good for the brand, and maybe I get some viewers, and I'm probably one of the only people that's like self-aware about clout chasing and that kind of thing. But also, like, I'm going to be exposed to psychos again, and like, I'm not doing by the numbers to try and cut down on my psycho intake, So, yeah, it's a shame. I miss talking to Stephen. It was good that we had that talk the other day when I dropped on his stream. And even though we sort of ran out of things to talk about because it was all like back in the day, I would definitely talk to Stephen more. There's just a couple of people in his orbit I just don't want to be around. Like, it's as simple as that. They're just bad news, and he'll figure that out eventually. And it's like, I don't know, there'll be a drama. There's a drama down the road involving some of these people, and I don't want to be there when it happens. So yeah, Stephen definitely. We used to have a lot of funny conversations, man. There you go. But you end up where you end up, and Scott too, frankly. But again, what are you going to do? Mouse, in a timeline where Ricardo Luis Voldemort, he who shall not be named, wasn't pushed out of League of Legends, would it have been realistic to see him be a player representative, or specifically Asian players, and a mediator between orgs, Riot, and players? Are there any stories you could have averted or altered the course of? It's a very weird spot to be in, because there is no mediation with Riot. You have to understand that. That's problem number one. There is no mediation with Riot. Would Riot have ever accepted me as the mediator? No way. No way. In fact, if you had a problem and I was a representative and you were bringing your problem to me and I had to go to Riot with it, based on all the things I'd done to fucking Riot, right? Like all the things I'd exposed about them as a company, they would absolutely just say no on principle, because that's how petty and pathetic they are. And so, keep in mind, I'm the guy that, when they covered up a data breach, I'm the guy who got it and published it. And they hated it. They hated that. That was really bad. And I was the guy that exposed that they were like doing all these secret fucking meetings with the Reddit mods, keeping them on message and doing commercial aspects, promotion of new heroes and stuff, and everybody hated that. I was the first ever journalist to get an LCS contract and have it read by a lawyer peripheral to esports, and everybody fucking hated that. So the bottom line is like, I was also like, just little things. When Mark Merrill had been boosted, and I exposed that. When he donated money to a charity to punish himself for being boosted, I exposed it was his charity that he sat on the board of. I have had them, like, you have to understand, before Astralis was getting got with like body blows, right? Like, but every time you told a lie, Richard Lewis was there to correct it. And not just correct it, but hard correct it with fucking evidence. Every time you try to run game on the community, I was the fucking dude, right? I was doing that to Riot for fucking years. Think about how big a company Riot is, and there's one guy. And as I said, when one of their executives got to me on fucking Skype and basically said, "You're not making any friends in this business," that was the end for them. They was like, okay, I'm not making any friends. So you're threatening me. Well, let's see how it pans out. And I'm here, and you're paying $100 million and publicly admitting that, yeah, you did have a sexist culture. So, which one of us is the bad guy? You just fuck them. But no, they would have never let me be they would never have allowed me to operate in the ecosystem. They've done it with players, they've done it with managers, they've done it with coaches, they've done it with casters. There's no way they were ever going to let me be part of the ecosystem. Mark Merrill believes, it was another reason why I walked away from the esports awards, because of his lifetime achievement award. Mark Merrill believes you owe him if you have ever worked a day in League of Legends' orbit. He thinks you owe him. He thinks you owe him fealty. He thinks you should be scattering rose petals on the ground as he walks into the room. Well, fuck that. He's just a cunt to me. He's just a fucking classic, privileged tech bro, fucking, who managed to free up some fucking Chinese money and then built himself a little fucking cult. You don't impress me, mate. You're Colonel Kurtz in Heart of Darkness. That's what you are, mate. You mean nothing to me. So, fuck them. But yeah, they would never let me play. Carve's illegitimate child asks, have you ever used an Amsterdam glory hole booth? The serious answer to that is no. The reason that is a question is I'm sure you all saw the viral meme about the unfortunate reveal, the familial reveal, which was what was doing around. Now, clearly, by the way, that story is a massive didn't happen. I'm very disappointed it went viral and nobody's kind of like, because that is like the type of joke that, in fact, it is actually the opening gag of National Lampoon's Class Reunion. There you go. There's a fucking pull for movie references. Nobody's seen it, but National Lampoon's Class Reunion, 1982. It's widely regarded as one of the worst National Lampoon's films, if not the worst. But anyway, basically it's a joke slasher movie, but what happens at the start is an unpopular kid called Walter Baylor, I think his name is, gets paired up with what he thinks is like the prom queen. And the only thing is they have to wear masks. And they have some, hanky-panky, I believe is what the kids say. And they were doing that. And in the car, and then the masks come off and everybody's there. And he loses his fucking mind and he kills everybody. But it's a comedy. Allegedly, although there's not many jokes in it. So it's a twist on a classic premise. And so it didn't happen, and it's weird that it went viral and everyone was pretending it was serious because I've been going to Amsterdam a lot as well. Like I've been going to Amsterdam since the 90s. I can't really think of anywhere where that would be possible. Like I don't know. I certainly have done my fair share of time in the red light district, and I have never heard of a place where you can go and you're on one side of the glory hole, and you're the general public, and you're on one side, and the other general public is on the other side. Never heard of establishment that does that. Can't even see what the business model is behind that. Don't understand why you would take the liability of anything that happens between two members of the general public. So no, it's a total bullshit story, by the way. So just so everybody knows. Right, next. If you were born a Zoomer, what type of things would Zoomer Richard be into? Would Richard's stream still be bussing for real, for real? It's very hard to say because, I wasn't really into trends when I was younger. I wasn't a trendy kind of guy. I was very much into my own shit. So, you always want to believe that you would just be the same dude, but you wouldn't. So generationally, I don't know what it would be like because, when I went to school, and I mean school, we used to drink at 14, and we'd taken mushrooms by 14 and smoked smoked weed by 14, and definitely got weird at 14, and I think I did ecstasy first time when I was like 14. So I mean, it was just a different world, fucking. No one's doing that at 14 now. So I don't really know. It's kind of like hard to really put it into perspective because kids these days, you talk to like an 18-year-old and they're just like there's just nothing going on. They haven't really been turned down. The brain hasn't had the switch. They're not activated yet. It's sort of like it is true that adolescence has kind of been extended to a certain degree. So I don't know. Would I be the same person? I mean, probably. I'd be into worse music. Be listening to whatever shit they listen to, which I always know because it's always like the one song that's on fucking TikTok or whatever. You know what I mean? But yeah, I know. I'd probably be about half the same. I think I would still be relatively interested in the same things I'm interested in, but I'd have worse taste in music, worse taste in clothes, which is really saying something. And by the way, I did have the broccoli haircut because that's how long, again, I've been alive. The broccoli haircut with the undershave was like what I had as a kid. That was the bussing for real haircut back in the fucking day. That was what you got. So I literally had that haircut, and I probably could find a picture of it. Adam Oki, do you have a meal, perhaps, milady, from your childhood that holds a special place in your heart? Perhaps one made from cheap, unusual ingredient combinations, For example, I have a friend who used to eat boiled hot dogs cut into pieces, mixed in basic box-style mac and cheese with slices of that terrible American-style Kraft cheese on top. Yeah, dude, that's like a legit thing. I've heard people do that in the States. Clearly an easy and cheap meal a busy parent can make, and not something someone typically would do or think sounds good. But my friend still eats this on occasion as comfort food. Very hard to say, because I like to try and dip into food memories from time to time. And it's kind of tough, because you go... So, right, for a poor kid in Britain, and I've talked about it before, and I know this resonated with some of you, because obviously, you know, everyone's got all different levels of income and different ages and different experiences. But, you know, I said you sort of understand what I'm about if you've ever had to choose, you know, sleep or a meal. And that was like literally when we were getting to the end of the week and we had to wait, you know, on a fortnight, we had to wait for the benefits to come in. And there was no money left. You know, so basically what you were left with was the last sandwich, you know, the last couple of slices of bread or the beans on toast or, you know, whatever it was. And your mother would say, look, you can go to bed early tonight and we can eat tomorrow, or you can or you can have the food tonight and be full, but but you're going to spend a lot of time in bed tomorrow and you're probably going to be hungry. And you go, do I want to sleep now or do I want the food now? You know, and you kind of weigh it up because you know you're not getting nothing till Monday. So, you know, people who've gone through that kind of, like I say, you end up having a strange relationship with food. Like for me, in my brain, comfort is always having a full cupboard. I don't like it. I get antsy when the fridge is starting to get empty. There's not like stuff in the cupboard. You know, every time guests come round, I insist on like, oh, I'll cook for you. I'll do this. I'll do that. It's like there's this thing about like poverty and plenty in my brain that's been formed from like, you know, starving. And so when I knew we'd turned a corner financially in my life was when my mother could afford to buy me shit. She could afford to buy me garbage, you know, garbage that kids in the 80s used to eat, garbage that other kids at school could eat. There were no turkey drummers in my life for a long time. There was no Finder's crispy pancakes in my life for a long time. There was no Captain Birdseye fish fingers in my life for a long time. But then when they were there, oh, well, it's a fucking game changer, because now I've got this food memory. The hook is deep. A particular flavor, a particular taste, a particular sensation is fucking linked to better times in, you know, my youth. So in my real youth, you know, like my you know, not adolescence, but like being a child. So I remember when we used to go shopping, it would have been a Presto. But like this is, I just feel like I'm talking gibberish sometimes, because I know I've got like a boomer enclave. I know I've got a boomer enclave that like understand. Yeah, they know. But to the rest of you, you're just like, is Richard having a stroke? No, there was a supermarket chain called Presto. And they used to have a fucking terrible commercial. You'll be impressed, Presto. That was it. And used to fucking... Yeah, I'll see if I can play it, actually. Oh, wow. It even got slightly racist at the end. Okay, hang on. We're going in. But I suppose it's racism towards Italians, which Americans tell me is okay. Look at this. Harp Lager, Plowman's Bitter.
Croft Original, $3.59.
Classic claret. I'm impressed.
You're impressed, though.
Oh.
QC British Sherry, $1.89. Paul Masson White, $2.39. Tonino Red, $1.90.
By the way, this is what working class scum used to think was like decadence. Whoa, Tonino. Let's have a fucking glass of Tonino. Like, fucking, we're partying now on the estate.
Italian. I'm impressed.
You're in a presto.
You're in a Presto, you fruity Italian. Look at that, like.
You'll be impressed.
There it is, right? That was the part of the Argyle group. That was how we were rolling back then. I know the prices, and that's biodynamics, baby. But anyway, yeah, we used to go. So we go to Presto. We go to Presto, and I said, "Mum, look at this fruity Italian." We go to Presto, and she would say, this is like again when we'd had this bump in economics. I guess is obviously the subtext is this is linked to when my stepdad comes into my life, because that money doesn't just come from nowhere, does it? Although not, she was working. She would say, "Go and get some things that you want. you go and pick off the shelves. And I used to come back with crap, like fucking go to the freezer section, get crispy pancakes, Findus crispy pancakes, fish fingers, those turkey dinosaurs. And I would go onto the shelves and I would get, pot noodles. And the other one that I fucking loved, Vesta chow mains with the fucking crispy noodles. And God bless her, she would just let me eat all that shit. Now, the problem with it is I went back, like, not even that long ago. I was like, oh, I wonder if these things are still fucking, like, straight fire, like you remember them. And the problem is, not only probably wouldn't they be, but all the ingredients are changed. All that crap I ate, that's what kills me at 60, by the way. It's not even the booze, it's not the drugs. What kills me at 60 is the crap I ate in the fucking 80s. Because it was like, well, that unregulated E number, that was super delicious. Yeah, cancer that. But it's like gallbladder cancer or something, that one. So it gets you later on, or, skin. And so all the E numbers have changed, all the colourings have changed, all the flavourings have changed, all the ingredients are now banned. I was just fed a steady diet of fucking carcinogens as a child, And so nothing tastes as good. Them Vesta chow mains that I love with the crispy noodles, them crispy noodles now? Made out of lentils. Lentils. So big Sag, you can't go back. But yeah, I do think about those times. This is Scouse J, Richie 2 stories. Have you got any Halloween stories for us this time of year? I was thinking about this one as well when I was looking at the questions before the stream, and it's like, you know what? I've already kind of told the Ming one, and I don't think I'm ever topping that Halloween story. Like, to be fair, it's true. I could probably do a Bert Kreischer style fucking stand-up tour just on the basis of the Ming story. So you're not going to top it. There's some interesting sort of knock-on effects, which I may or may not have said sort of tangentially, because the other Ben we knew looked like Jesus, and I know I told that part of the story, but one year of Halloween, he literally did a full Jesus with a stigmata and a crucifix and a crown of thorns. He went out and we got to the nightclub, and he said, "You can't come in." The doorman went, "You can't come in." And he went, "What do you mean?" He went, "You bloody can't come in." And he was going, "Why? Is it because..." Ben was like, a lefty, He's going, "Oh, why? Because it offends Christians." "Oh, no. Won't someone think of the Christians? Won't someone think of the Christians? Why? Oh, your Christian feelings." And he went, "No, you've got a bloody weapon on you, mate." And he went, "What do you mean, a weapon?" He went, "That's a big bloody piece of wood. Can't come in with that. Can't come in carrying that, lad. What the fucking think's going on here? What kind of club do you think I'm running? What kind of bouncer would I be if I let you in with bloody great 2x4? So that was it. Jesus had to leave his crucifix outside. I remember then, he like calms down and he goes, "Oh, sorry, yeah, obviously. Can I leave this?" "You can't bloody put it in cloakroom." So you can't bloody put it in cloakroom. You'll have to leave it outside. Can't have it come past threshold, I'm afraid. He just left his crucifix outside and went drinking. Zumba asks, what is a story that sort of perfectly encapsulates someone in esports? A story that makes you think classic behaviour from that person. Obviously, the one that would immediately spring to mind is the one we told a million times when Duncan had that epic sort of meltdown as we were being pushed to fucking breaking point at Cluj Napoca, and he told that fucking cameraman to not even look at him. But I must look at you through the camera. Don't you make direct eye contact then. That's classic. But I'm trying to think. I want to think of someone else. There's got to be another example. I won't do the... See, I've done that one as well. The red eye one with Get Right. We'll leave that out. See, I don't know if I'm going to top that Zumba, dude. I don't know. And then I feel like I'm letting you down with the question. Yeah, I don't know. I sort of hate to break it to you, but unfortunately, even the talent that I sort of like, a kind of vain, egotistical weirdos. But I like them. Yeah, I mean, listen, Banks, fucking hell, dude. Like, yeah, you see, because I've done them all. Because the Dust, yeah, see, tell one about Dust. Dust, when he kick-flipped the fucking skateboard and split his own face open, just when things were going well. That's like a classic. It's like a metaphor for Dust's career, you know. That was like another one at E-League, but you all know that one. You know, it's just like, hey, everybody, I'm doing it. Look, I'm so cool. Oh, my God, Dust can skateboard. Maybe he's cool after all. Maybe he can be at the top of esports forever with his super cool skateboarding skills, and I'll just do this kickflip and injury and split face. So, yeah, they've kind of all been sort of done, I guess, unfortunately. But, yeah, like, listen, the Banks stuff, I just don't get it, man. Like, why is nobody just done? Like, here's all you have to do. Just look at some of these statements, contrast them to some of his other statements. All of a sudden, you are down a rabbit hole, by the way, guys. Like, it's actually ridiculous. The lies. Just lies. I just can't, you know. We ain't talked in a long time because I can't. So the hot mic was just perfect. What I love about the hot mic, actually, what I love about the Banks hot mic incident is, if it was me and I got caught saying I fucking hate players because they're lazy cunts and I want to smash their heads in, there is no way anyone on Reddit would have been charitable about it. No way. If Thorin had said that, there would have been a petition within 10 seconds demanding he be pulled from the broadcast because he's making players feel unsafe. But fucking king of esports, Banks, does it, and it's just not even an incident. It's just saw somebody the other day like posting going, it's kind of a bit fucked up he said that, no? And everyone's like, what? He's calling players lazy. Banks is right. No, the smashing the heads in part, came the reply. Yeah, it's an expression. I am from Britain, said someone clearly not from Britain. And we just say that all the time to each other. What's that, mum? No turkey drummers, I will smash your head in. Smash my head in, will you? Well, if you smash my head in, I'll smash your head in. That's what we do. Do you take this woman to be your lawful wedded wife? I do. You may now smash her head in. Wee, nice one, father. I'm smashing her head in. I'm just joking, of course, in a video game in Minecraft. It's so stupid. Like he literally was saying that as an extension of this like tough guy persona he's been trying to build for like so long. And it's just like, I don't know, bro. Like, just fucking the last thing we need in esports is that shit. It's kind of all been done. It's all played out, like esports itself. Sorry, Zoom. This is I Can't Take This Shit No More, another one. Question: Wings of Redemption is one of my favourite YouTube streaming personalities. Have you ever had the joy of interacting with him? No, I haven't, and I really want to. I really, really, really want to get him on the podcast. I might even pay. He might even become the first paid guest. Don't tell him I said this, because I know he needs the money. So I don't want to, like, give it up, you know, like, too much, but I might even pay to just get him on the podcast. Just don't tell him I said that. But I would. I think he is like that. I really want him on the show. Gross Score would be good too, actually. You know, the difference is I've talked to Gross Score several times. You know, I don't know what's going on there at the moment. Every time he comes across my timeline on Twitter, he's always talking about, I don't know, like, eating jizz or something. I don't know what the fuck's going on. Each to their own, pal. But, you know, happy to talk about his career. It's been crazy, and, you know. But the honestly, Wings of Redemption is like, he's like my fucking streaming icon. Unironically. He has given me and my friends so much joy. And yes, that joy has all been predicated on his suffering. But because of that, I am infinitely grateful. He's just so fucking cool that he has just been willing to destroy his entire life to entertain dozens of people. It's just so fucking good. I love him so much. So yeah, dude, I would honestly, not even joking, I fucking love that guy. Like, legit. I would love to have him on the show. I really mean it. I've got a ton of great questions for him. I think if he engaged in it, with them in good faith, I think I could even be the guy to unlock, some of the perspectives, because I think sometimes part of his problem is he sort of straddles the line between wanting to be popular and liked, and when he can feel it's happening, he takes it too far, and then if you take that too far, you immediately become unlikable. But then there's other times where he gets really hurt, and he doesn't realize that the bully doesn't stop hitting you just because you start crying. You've got to do something. You got to show the bully something, and he never understands that fundamental lesson. And so, he thinks he can ban-world his way out of the mob, and he can't. And it's like, I know. I think inside of Wings is a good person trying to get out. Like, I really do. And if he was just showing a bit more kindness, it'd be different. So. Yeah, love to talk to him, 100%. We're amazed we haven't, because there was that period in Call of Duty where, shit, man, all of the guys that I fucking wrote about, Syndicate, all of those dudes, they all know who the fuck I am. Shit, man, But I guess he just sort of was off on his own shit then. Right, Peppermint says, any opinion on the series Altered Carbon? This is going to be a real short question. Personally, really like the first season and the setting. Never watched it. Seen it, heard of it, really. I fucking know it exists. I think I saw it advertised on Amazon, but never dipped in. It's definitely not on a list yet. But maybe. I still haven't watched Severance yet, and everyone raved about that. I'm probably meant to watch that, right? Super sad. I was hoping. Was there staring at Netflix, hoping that second season of Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities was just going to arrive, and it didn't. Very sad. So I'm probably going to watch The House of Usher next. But yeah, listen, nothing but time. I'm a grown man who's wasted his life trying to be a gamer. So we'll see. Ivy Milo, the intravenous de Milo, asks, what are some of your favourite British comedy shows? Right, now, this is a good question, isn't it? Because British comedy is kind of it's held up, certainly by Americans, as being this, because it was with Monty Python and everything, the Americans all loved that, even though they didn't understand it. That was what was really weird about that time. The Americans loved Monty Python, but they didn't understand why Monty Python was funny. They didn't even have the cultural touchstones or understood any of it. But, Monty Python is very much, the movies are maybe better than the series, but they do great sketches. But sketch shows are always hit and miss. I was thinking about this the other day, actually. It's kind of funny. It came up. I was talking about it with a friend. And does anyone remember Monkey Dust? It was like an animated series. They did very edgy sketch shows. Very edgy sketches, rather. It was they had some fucking insane recurring characters. There was one sketch where it was a man walking home through this dystopian British hellscape of just cars on fire and flats. And he would get home and his wife would say, "Clive, where have you been, Clive?" And he would go, "Well, the thing is," and then he would tell this fucked up insane thing. He would say, and then before I knew it, I was going through a wormhole, and then when I looked up, the planet was a baby, and that's what really happened. And she would go, "That's just the plot to 2001: A Space Odyssey. What have you really been doing, Clive?" And he'd be like, "Oh, me and your dad were with a prostitute in, Presto car park." And that would just be the sketch. They had these really funny characters. There was Ivan Dobsky, the meat safe murderer. He was a killer who had been imprisoned wrongly for the killings he'd done, and then he'd been released. His only friend was a space hopper. He was clearly because it was really, it was satirical. It wasn't just funny. Obviously, we all know what happened with the killing of Jill Dando, and they locked up a guy. What was he called? Barry Bulsara, Barry George, and he obviously didn't do it, but he was a nutter that was known to the local people. He was vulnerable. You know, he was a Freddie Mercury impersonator, you know, who was clearly not the full shilling. And the police fitted him up. And then the Court of Appeals fitted him up. And the Court of Appeals after that fitted him up. And everybody fitted him up. Because Jill Danda was a big celebrity, so someone's got to go for it. Someone's got to fall. And they pinned it on the nutter. Well, in Monkey Dust, Ivan Dobsky, the meat safe murderer, hadn't done the meat safe murders. He gets out, he tries to rehabilitate and fit back in with society after his already damaged brain has been broken by fucking torture. There's always a gag in there about, like, he always goes, I'm Ivan Dobsky. He talks like this. I know obviously we've used this voice for certain people. But he goes, I'm Ivan Dobsky, the meat safe murderer, only I never done it. I only said I done it so they would take my willy out the jar of wasps. And he would say stuff like that. And obviously they tortured him to get a confession, you know. And so what would always happen is he would go back out into society and he would end up killing someone. He would end up committing a mass atrocity, a massacre, because, you know, fucking the meta commentary on that is like, you know, prison sort of brutalizes people, and the the British justice system takes vulnerable people, puts them inside, and makes them worse. So, you know, there was like loads of stuff like that. There was like it was a really good sketch show, which if you can get it, because it's not in circulation now, if you can get Monkey Dust, go do it. Big Train was another one I always had a soft spot for. That was Simon Pegg. Big Train is another one that kind of always seems to have fallen by the wayside. Garth Marenghi, everybody knows I like that. I've even got his book, Terratome, I think, over there. I even bought the book. He's going to be doing a tour soon. Garth Marenghi, Dark Place is great. Always send clips of Garth Marenghi to my friends. I never got on with the IT crowd. Thought that was shit. Didn't like that. Classics, Blackadder. It's one of the best British comedies of all time. It really hasn't aged, you know, when you consider, I mean, the first season sucks anyway, but once they nailed the formula, you know, when you consider that's like 40 plus years old, and it's great. Thick of It is great. Really good, biting comedy. The best political satire on British TV since Yes Minister / Yes Prime Minister, which is also great. So, Peep Show. I mean, listen, British comedy shows, they are all... the one thing you've just got to accept about the Brits, S-tier sense of humour, like S-tier. We got it all. We got gallows humour because we were raised with that stiff upper lip bullshit. You know, if you're in a crisis, don't ever let it show. No, you just fucking take it on the chin, blah, blah. So that's there. We do gallows humour better than anyone in the world, probably. Then when you've got surrealist humour, well, Brits are always out there in the fucking fields eating mushrooms. You know, we're the land of fucking Tolkien, we're the land of Stonehenge. You know, we're that. So we do surrealist humour as well as anybody in the world. In terms of observation comedy, things like The Office and these kind of like send-ups of stuffy conventions, you know, Fawlty Towers is that. Fawlty Towers is essentially, you know, we all know about little petty megalomaniac men who have their own tiny little empires. I mean, that's like a British tradition. Dad's Army, Fawlty Towers, British Empire, you know, Alan Partridge. It's about megalomaniac men without any sort of talent or charisma, desperately trying to hold on to empires that they've built, you know, which are on foundations of sand. It's in, you know, yes, it gets pushed through the traditional sitcom model of order, chaos, order, rinse and repeat. But at the end of the day, you know, that's a very British type of comedy. We do satires probably better than anyone because we are used to the idea of a landed gentry and a ruling class. Satire going all the way back to Swift had to be cloaked, you know, because it was very subversive, potentially seditious. So, you know, we do satire in such a very withering but astute kind of way, you know. And again, there's lots of modern, you know, updates of this, you know, Thick of It on the telly, but also things like Alan Moore and V for Vendetta. I mean, it's essentially a dark satire in a lot of ways. And then stuff, yeah, you know, Red Dwarf for the first, like, 6 seasons is, like, just god tier. It's like, you know, but again, Brits do wicked sci-fi comedy as well. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, a ton of other stuff, you know. So we've always just been a fucking hotbed of, like, comedic genius. And then what happens is it gets exported to the rest of the world, but it gets untethered from the conventions and the history that makes it funny and relevant. And what you end up with is 20 seasons of The American Office that everyone jerks off about, and it's crap. It's crap compared to the original. You end up with the Americanized versions of Red Dwarf, where a focus group said we can't have Kachansky be a Scottish, redheaded Scot with bad teeth. She's got to be an American for some reason now, and it's crap. You end up with remakes of Spaced. Spaced is fucking god tier, and they did that. They did like a fucking pilot of Spaced. Oh, and it's crap. Yeah, American Fools and Horses. It was bad enough when they did that Miami Twice Christmas special, wasn't it? With no laughter. Ugh. And it looked American. It wasn't filmed the same way. Gross. So, unfortunately, when you take British comedy and you try and, you either have to you've just got to take the premise and rewrite it, is what you have to do. You can't just take something that's uniquely British. And look, listen, I've done this a ton. I've shown British art, British film, British comedies, British TV to American friends when I was living in America. Like God Bless Little Momo, Little Moses. I made him watch the original Wicker Man. Means nothing to, they don't know about they don't know about the islands around Britain. They don't know what it's like in rural Britain. They don't know about potential paganism in rural Britain, do they? But I made Moses watch it, and he just didn't understand what was going on. And it's a great movie. It's a fucking classic. Blood on Satan's Claw, things like this. These are fucking great British folk horror, but no frame of reference to an American brain. So what are you going to do? So yeah, like British comedies S tier. There's so many to choose from. And as I said, even the new wave, a lot of people type in Mighty Boosh. It's not for me. I wouldn't say I particularly like it, but I watched it all, and some episodes do have me in absolute, there's some bits that have me in fucking stitches, obviously. But it's a very smart, show. And obviously League of Gentlemen has aged horribly. But one of the funniest sketches, the very first episode of the League of Gentlemen, one of the characters is a vet. And this is very, again, unique to British comedy because we have this All Creatures Great and Small, all these stupid TV shows about fucking vets all riding around the countryside and, pulling fucking baby sheep out of fucking other sheep. And, there was always a running joke. Hale and Pace, if you remember them, used to do it, where they used to do this sketch where basically every time a conversation happened, the vet was always talking with his arm up a cow's ass, So anyway, so the vet goes out. And a guy opens the door. He's a farmer, fat farmer, The farmer opens the door and he's crying. And he goes, "Oh, I'm glad you can get here, Mr. Chinnery." And brings him in. He's going, "Blacko, he's been so sick for so long. And he can't move anymore. I just want it to be over with." And he's like crying. And what you realise is the vet's come to put this dog down. He goes, It's okay. Well, he'll be at peace soon." Mr. Chinnery, the vet, walks into the room and he sees the dog curled up by the fire, and he walks over and he goes, "Been a tough time, hasn't it? But don't worry, I'm going to put you out of your misery soon. Bet you had a great life, chased some cats, caught some bones, one sharp scratch, and it'll all be over." And you hear the dog and he goes, it like whimpers. By the way, this is mad triggering for anyone who's had to put a pet down, I know, but and he's just like going, shh, shh, shh. And it just sits on this scene that if you ever put a dog down, it's like really upsetting. And then the farmer walks in and he's carrying a big fat dog. And Mr. Chinnery goes, "And who's that there?" And he goes, "It's Blacko, the poorly one. The one I want you to put down." And he goes, "And this one? The sleeping dog by the fire." "That's Whiskey. She's my little angel." And he's just killed this perfectly healthy dog. Oh, man. It's like the first sketch in the first episode. I was like, what the fuck is this? I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was just like, this is fucking mental. And then obviously, it goes on, and it's a really, really good TV series. You should, if you're easily offended, there might be a few jokes in there that haven't aged particularly well. But anyway, they were so fucking on point and so funny. And it's been forgotten about because it really isn't very PC. By the way, the writers of that TV series now are doing one of the best TV series you haven't seen as well, called Inside Number 9. Last series was a bit weak, unfortunately, but I'm a big fan. Reece Shearsmith and the guys. But if you watch the first 4 seasons of Inside Number 9, it's kind of basically like Alan Bennett meets The Twilight Zone. I think you'll find episodes in there that you'll really enjoy. But that kind of British humour, but with horror twists. It's a very interesting show. Mega Awesome Fan asks, are you surprised that Donald Trump hasn't fully returned to Twitter/X? No, not at all. In fact, he doesn't need to, does he? Because what the journalists do is every time he puts up a message on Truth Social, the journalists who wanted him banned off Twitter screenshot it and then post it on Twitter. So, why would he even need to be? Also, I mean, there's a lot of talk that he's got some special agreement, special deal with fucking Truth, so he's not legally allowed to post. I don't even think it's that deep. I think obviously, he said he weren't going to be back, and he's just going to do it and hold on to it. Maybe the account will get repurposed as we get closer to the election, but I just think he's got the last thing he needs to be doing with all the lawsuits he's embroiled in right now and all the legal stuff is to be tweeting every day. So, no, I'm not really surprised. I wouldn't even surprise me if his lawyers have advised him to stay off. And then last question, also from Mega Awesome Fan. Any thoughts on the New Yorker piece on Hassan Minhaj and the response thereafter? Yeah, this was very interesting. We'll kind of get into this, because it's the last question. It's a really big topic. I won't overload. But the bottom line is, this comedian did one of those comedy specials, and it's a comedy special about race relations in America. So, it's the classic, it's a comedy, but it's also just a fucking aggressive lecture about why you're a cunt. And so it's not for me, but I'm all about truth in journalism, irrespective of who's getting wrecked by the journalists abusing their platform. And anyway, the New Yorker, ran a piece that basically said he'd made up the racism that had happened in his life to use it for the purposes of this comedic show, which he says is based on real life. Which, by the way, I just wouldn't give a fuck about that. I just wouldn't care. It's a piece of art. People take artistic liberties. It's fine. It would actually be a way cooler story in a way if he sort of had to invent the racism to make the point. I wouldn't want him to have experienced it, if you know what I mean. But anyway, they basically said he made up a load of details, embellished it a bunch, sort of done the show, maliciously humiliate the woman. They made him sound like he was basically like a bitter incel. It all revolved around prom and how her parents didn't want them to go to prom together because he wasn't white and they were worried about what it would look like in the photos and blah blah. It's called Homecoming King or something like that. Anyway, so they just ran that story just sort of fucking as if to say he was an incel, and then he proved that he had offered to give them email proof. He'd offered to he'd said these things. He even said, yeah, I've embellished parts of it. It didn't happen on prom night itself. It happened days before and all of this. And he released the recordings and released them. They refused to even take the emails, refused to take any proof, they refused to get into contact with all these people. They just literally wanted to say what they wanted to say. And it was very illustrative of sort of how modern journalism is. They took one thing he said, not even the complete quote or sentence, used it out of context, refused to add context to it, despite having all the things that they could add context from being offered to them on a platter, and then ran a story basically saying, yeah, he's a liar. He's an incel. He's not a victim of racism. And he had to come out and do a video. I liked it. But, yeah, it turns out, you know, that even the fucking right-on lefty liberals, journalists, if they think there's a story there, they'll just fucking tell lies. You know, far be it from me to say that maybe the fucking institution itself is broken, but what the fuck do I know? So that's the last question. We've done it.